What's up, everybody? What's up? This is the Reluctant Nabi, and today we're going to bring to you how the 1968 Democratic-led FBI threw unalive Afro people and the BAW that supported that government and continue to support that brand of democratic government. Remember, every last policy set up by these Dems from the 68 conventions and stuff like that has been disastrous to the Afro people. So before I get started, let me greet everybody. Havorten hardu good dog all the way to the main. Fasas los bonjour mes amis. Kerabawani konnichiwa. Ni hao ni ama sani bonani. Jambo habayagani. Assalamu alaikum and shalom. Kamusta ka, kamusta po kayo. Talapa lava soy fruit to my brother out there in Hawaii. Alright, so let's break this down. For time and time again, alright, when we try to reach up and fight for the right to even be considered human as Afro people in the United States, it was the governmental entities, the Democrats specifically. The Democrats, see, here's the thing. The Democrats came up with the plan to disenfranchise us, to shoot us in the back, to destroy our communities when they started to prosper. Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Every time we did, the Democrats, all right, and why am I explaining this to you? You say, well, brother, you don't vote. That's right, because the Most High orders my path. But I'm supposed to call out evil and wickedness where I see it, because that's what the Most High told us to do. If we are the sons of men, and according to Ezekiel chapter 16, chapter 23, chapter 26, the Most High refers to us as the sons of men and told us to judge Aholiba and Ahola, to judge these governments, to judge these females, to judge. The only people telling us not to judge are the people that have moved their lives far away from the Most High. Those are the people telling us not to judge. You know, the crooked preachers who in the last 10 years made $800 billion off of the poor in the Afro community. That's right. I said the black church made $800 billion. You know that tops Amazon, right? Off of the poor. And that's take home because, you know, they're not taxed. All right. These are the people that don't want us to judge. But the Most High says, son of man. And we are sons of men. Especially if you're Afro. Without a doubt, if you're Afro. So we're supposed to judge the crooked women, the crooked preachers, the crooked government, and crooked men that follow these entities. All right, so we're going to get into it. I got two things to show you. One is by Gloria Steinem. Pay attention to what's really been going on. Now, I want y'all to listen to this dude. And what he is going to expound upon is what happened with the FBI, what the FBI tried to do. And we'll get into these BWs behind it.
The next time you're mulling over the ways in which capitalism contributes to the marginalization of people of color, you should know that in...
Now, understand this. This is not capitalism. He's going to tell the truth, but this is not capitalism. And see, one of the things when we judge is we need to put the claim with the perpetrator. So who did this to us was not capitalism. It was the democratic government. There is no such thing as a good form of government because it's all run by men And in this case, it's run primarily by racist men. And we know this by the actions that they take in policy. Like all these mandates that they spread around the country, this government here spread around the country, was targeted at Afro people so melanated people don't travel. All right, these passports, these new type of V passports, were racist propaganda targeted at melanated people. There's a way we know this. They know that most of the melanated in America did not get the juice, the Fauci juice. They understand that Africa not only didn't get it, but didn't need it. It's the place where that did the best. All right. And so how is it that the people that are the most immune cannot travel, but the people that's spreading the most stuff? Y'all know what happened on 100% of the cruise ship that had 100% of the people with the juice passport, right? 100% of it got the came down with the CV. Think about that. Now, so it's the Democrats. It's not capitalism. It's the Democrats.
April 1968, the San Francisco field office of the FBI sent out a memo with the following text.
So the San Francisco FBI of 1968 were all Democrats. All the people that assassinated our leaders in the government were Democrats. Let that sink in. Jim Crow, Democrats. All this stuff, Democrat. Some of us were being born at this time. So this slavery wasn't a long, long time ago. It just took a different name with different enforcers. Now it's the government itself and the FBI. It's federal enforcement to keep Afro people down.
In it. The Negro youth and moderate must be made to understand that if they succumb to revolutionary teachings, they will be dead revolutionaries.
Dead revolutionary. So it's the FBI threatening to unalive Afro men primarily who stand up for their rights. They will arrest any Afro women that support those Afro men. But how will they find us out? We'll get to that in a minute. Because a lot of these BWs, like being considered for the Supreme Court, they're not married to Afro men. They do not have Afro family. They have white families. Let that sink in. Remember, when a woman gets with a man, she submits to the man. The only woman that don't submit to their man is the BAW in the United States. But if they get with a Caucasian man, they submit to whatever his will is. All right. So if most of these women considered for the Supreme Court, all but one are married to Caucasian men. And what do they want? The abject destruction of us, especially in that stratosphere.
Is it not better to be a sports hero, a well-paid professional athlete or entertainer, a regularly paid white or blue-collar worker, a peaceful human being with a family, or a person who at least is being accepted than a Negro who may have got even with the establishment by burning it down, but who along with this burned down his own home and gained for him and his people the hatred and distrust of whites for years?
I want y'all to understand that. Gained the mistrust and hatred for whites for years to come.
Years to come.
These are the people that hated and despised us anyway. These very same people, these very same Democrats. This is why I say, when it comes down to it, if it got to go there, I would rather die fighting than die in my bed without the chance to fight. Like a lot of guys are being shot while they're sleeping by the police. Fred Hampton shot while sleeping, set up by another. What's that animal with the mask? Set up by one of them. And he was shot while sleeping. Let that sink in for a second. That's how they do us. They disarm us, then shoot us in the back. Why? Because this government, when you really look at it, and the type of people running it are gutless. They are gutless. Germ warfare is a gutless way No one was ever, understand this, let me say this, no one was ever conquered by the European Caucasian who were indigenous to their land. They came here, they spread diseases everywhere, and they did micro and germ warfare to get rid of people so that when they came back, the people were in a weaker position because of sickness. They were never conquered. They were murdered. So when I say these people were murdered, understand this. I want you to clearly understand this. When I say that they were murdered, we as indigenous invited the Caucasians into everywhere they went, and they quote unquote conquered, but they didn't conquer, they murdered. They stabbed the people in the back once they saw that the people were good natured. Read Christopher Columbus's journal. These people are nice, they're beautiful. They invited us in, they fed us, they kept us well. We think they would make good slaves. This is the mentality of the Caucasians. This is the mentality of the governments we have now. Their wickedness is only now starting to be displayed as a result of this pandemic that has gone on. All right, pay attention to this.
Gloria, at the festival, you worked for the Independent Research Service.
That's right.
Well, exactly when did your own association with the CIA start, and in what fashion? Did they come to you, or did you go to them?
In 1958, when I came home from India, I discussed with student leaders, past and present, many of them active with the National Student Association, this kind of small foundation to encourage Americans to go. They thought it was a good idea, too. I was then told by foundations and professors and friends that I should not do this, that I would get in trouble with the House Un-American Activities Committee, the American...
Notice that this says the RRB JFK Assassination Archives.
Legion, all of those 50s people. And I became convinced that it was impossible. It was at that point that the student leaders said to me that they had in the past received funds for international programs from the CIA, and that they felt that this was important and could also be partly funded by the CIA.
Well, I mean, did you feel that you really tried? I mean, did you go around to all of the wealthy private foundations, wealthy private people, and explain your point of view, and explain why you felt it was important that the United States be represented in these things in a certain way? What did they tell you?
They told me that, well, the Ford Foundation, for instance, told me that they thought we were too liberal and too controversial, and that we would endanger their cultural programs in Austria. The first festival was being held in Vienna. It was not encouraging at all, and the private individuals to whom I went often had particular points of view to put forward, which would have been much, much more restricting than the CIA funds were, which were free. I mean, no one was told what to say.
What do you mean they were free? You mean to say it was easier for you to work for the CIA than a private
That's right.
organization?
That's right. And the reason I think that comes as a surprise, as it did to me at the time. I mean, I had the conventional liberals' view of the CIA as a right-wing incendiary group. And I was amazed to discover that this was far from the case, that they were enlightened, liberal, nonpartisan activists of the sort who characterized...
Explain this. If they're liberal, how can they be nonpartisan? That means they are partisan on the liberal side.
The Kennedy administration, for instance.
You have not been working now for the CIA since 1962. Mm-hmm. You still criticize. You were down recently in Washington?
Yes, when the story broke that I had once been, that I have for 4 years been a Central Intelligence agent, I was demonstrating outside the Pentagon underneath Mr. McNamara's office against bombing in Vietnam. And this didn't precisely fit with the image of a CIA agent, but then neither does the CIA.
CIA was liberal. Still are liberal. Democrat. Y'all might want to rewind a little bit and listen to that again. CIA was liberal. Democrat. Y'all, it's been the Democrats that's been destroying Afro people the entire time since slavery. Was the Republican Party in it? They allowed it. They turned the other way. Understand that. So, in all thy getting, get an understanding. While everybody is giving Gloria Steinem and Angela Davis so much credit, while they're making their runs on the media, in the media, on shows, while they get to talk about all the things that they fought for. They didn't fight for the Afro people or the community. They fought to put white women in positions of power in the hopes that some so-called black women would then be put in the positions of power by the same people that want to destroy the entire Afro population by destroying the man. See, because here's the thing. When you destroy the Afro male, there is no one that has the seed for that population. Why do you think that Caucasians go after the males and try to destroy them? Think about that for a second. Why do you think that is? Now let's look in contrast as to what happened to the women versus what happened to the men. So let's talk about Peter Norman, Tommy Smith, and John Carlos. Now I want to talk about Peter Norman real quick, along with Tommy Smith and John Carlos, because we get a comparison to what was done to the men who were actually standing up not only for the Afro community in the United States, but against the apartheids. See, y'all didn't know this. In the 68, the reason why people couldn't stand this, because these dudes were standing up for apartheids in South Africa and Uganda. That was happening in 68. All right, as well. The reason why one forgot his gloves, it was Peter Norman's idea that they both put a glove on each hand of the gloves that they had. And then Peter Norman joined in the protest by a pin that he wore. So did they get TV play? Were they promoted? No. Understand that the reason why the stuff was happening to us in 68 were because of Democrats, not capitalism. And the Republicans were complicit in all of this, because not only did some of them help, the Democrat was the idea, came up with the ideas. They ran everything. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the President, they had everything. The Democrats, all the while the Afro people were persecuted, we were literally persecuted by the Democratic Party. To this day, the police, because of their police unions, vote Democrat. They're not Republican, they're Democrat. Don't let them fool you. They are Democrat. And all the people that think that the Triple K crew is in the police force, yeah, that's because they're Democrat. They never change sides. They just fooled the fools into thinking that they changed sides. So basically, you can tell something was up on the way because of Peter. Because in that good old Aussie thing, they kind of let you know on the slide, oh, something about to go down. Now, this is basically what happened that day. All right, so as you notice, Carlos forgot his gloves, and Norman is the one that suggested that they share a pair. The Australian also asked how he could support and follow his fellow medalists. All right, so he came in second, and he came in second because um, let's see, John, he kind of laid off thinking he had it. That's why you run a race all the way through. All right. So they suggested that he wear a badge for the Olympic Project for Human Rights. All right. So he didn't raise his fist because he's Caucasian, but he wore that badge. And that made his stance clear that he was with the Afro people who raised their fist. All right. Now, everything that the Afro men do, the BAW steal from us and give it to Caucasians. Caucasian women in particular. So all of our movements were taken and given to the Caucasian women who were working for the CIA. And it stands to reason that some of these females was working for the CIA. That's how they got so good at infiltrating us or being able to sell the CIA, who would turn on the Afro men. A lot of these sellout men, who were they? They were dudes that followed the females and not the men. All right. Smith and Carlos were kicked out of the Olympic Village. Okay. And they faced serious backlash, right? Norman, he faced backlash in Australia. And even though he was the fastest one in Australia, they never allowed him to run again. And even when they didn't have no one else to run but him, they decided not to have a sprinter. They would rather not have a sprinter than have some Caucasian man who supported Afro. That's why when I see people talk about Peter Norman, I tell them that they should think about this guy. Because those men who are outside of our community, who stand with us in solidarity with our community, should be remembered. Because they go through hell too. All right. When Norman died, Carlos and Smith, who kept in touch with him for years, were the pallbearers at his funeral. And here's the saddest part. All of our stuff was stolen from us by the BAW, given to the Caucasian woman. All this to get power. And while they're now being held as some kind of fighters, which they weren't and are not, Angela Davis is nothing but a traitor to the Afro people. Period. And when you look at the damage that is done to women now, where they don't have nothing, not in sports anymore, because if you think female superiority and LG and all that stuff, if you're going to allow the LGBT in, then you got to allow all of it in. That's why I am in support of those athletes that identify outside of their thing. And I tell the women they need to shut the F up. Because they invited that in. Period. They invited that in. You invite in the LGBT, then you invite all of it in. Now me, I don't support them. I don't support their ways. I never marched against them or anything. I thought Boy George and all of them people were cool. I didn't want to get into rock and roll because I knew what it was about. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They told you. So I was like, that's their lifestyle. They keep that over there. I ain't going to be in it. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not a part of it. But I'm not going to tell them they can't do what they're doing, because the Most High gives us choices. So I'm not the Most High to take people's choice to do what they want to do away. But you want to shove what you do down my throat and say that I should teach it to my children. Now we got a problem. If you want to bring your stuff into my house, now we got a potentially ballistic one at that. Now, it took until 2012 for Norman to be recognized by the Australian government. Think about that. And now look at what they're doing to their people. One of the things that Norman was protesting was racism in Australia. We know what they did to the Aboriginals there. They wiped them out. People invite the Caucasian men in as friends, and the men say, oh, these are nice people, let's stand them in the back. That's their MO. The same way that they will stab us in the back as Afro people. These women don't belong to us. None of them have Afro families. They all have Caucasian families. Right? They cared only about the bag, only about achieving greatness among Caucasians. Period. They want us to worship them because they got something by betraying the community that they came from. Period. When we talk about racists, I'm just saying, it's all about the bag or the thug. Understand this. It's all about the bag or the thug. These BWs are just as bad as the FBI, and we don't know how many are working for them. All we know is we have two groups of people that's been setting us up within the system. One is the government themselves, and one, when we talk about us in the Afro community, is the BAW, who work for the government either directly or indirectly. Why do you think the government is giving them all the degrees and putting them in the legal system? I want y'all to understand that. These women are so proud that they're working in the Caucasian man illegal in wicked legal system. There's nothing good about the legal system. It's best not to be involved with it at all. Like, don't do anything that gets you in trouble, that puts you in the crosshairs of the BAW or the Caucasian man in his legal system. The Caucasian man is rewarding the BAW because they see them as partners in crime. You need to understand one thing. They're down for thug fizzle, the streets, and betrayal of anything good that the Afro man come up with. And it's up to us as Afro men to save ourselves. But when somebody outside of us join us in our struggle to be recognized as human, because think about this, the BAW don't even recognize us as human, don't recognize anything that we do. All right? So you keep this in mind, because it may come back to serve you in the time of need. They are just like the oppressors. And for the longest part of our history after slavery, these BAWs have been just like our oppressors, and our oppressors have been the Democrats primarily. And Republicans have been complacent. That's why they're both no good. With that said, I'm out.